Tumblr. I follow you on Tumblr.
I guess, yeah, I can put on my Tumblr. Oh, we're live. Okay, stardate 14044.259. This is the PTMG podcast where we talk about nerdy, sportsy, and artsy stuff, hopefully in less than an hour. I'm Bin Lee, a.k.a. this part-time movie guy. I almost said the sports guy. What the hell? I listened to Bill Simmons too much. So my partner in crime, as usual, is Vanessa Cozini, a.k.a. Crazy for Cult. And today we have a special guest, Peter Koski, who has been on the program before. He is a fellow Football Outsiders game charter. So obviously our main topic will be about the NFL, as he shows off his Joe Montana shirt.
I made the shirt myself.
You what?
I made this shirt myself.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So you might have, you can plug that, I guess, as, are you trying to go into the shirt-making industry here?
Not as of yet. I'm still trying to work on my sleazy photography so I can do an American Apparel style.
Okay, yeah, because, that had really good publicity with those American Apparel. All right, so some quick disclaimers, of course. This podcast is sponsored by Office Ninja, which is my movie. For those who are watching, here's DVD of my movie as I nearly knock over my water. It's on iTunes. Yeah, and we'll be on more stuff. Also, this podcast is uncensored, so my bad word of the episode is chuff nuts, which apparently is related to defecating. I think so. It was grouped with dingleberry, so I think I know where that's coming from, but I've never heard of chuff nuts before.
Nuts and berries, man.
All right, Vanessa, you have your own.
So my British bad word of the night is diddy ride or diddy rider, which is basically a titty fuck.
So that makes like P. Diddy that.
Well, in England, when they say titties, it sounds like ditties. So.
Okay. But yeah, suddenly Diddy in America sounds a lot different because there's P. Diddy, although I think he's now Puff Daddy again. He's very confusing.
Lord only knows.
It's like, it's not Puff now.
Maybe. Let's just call him Sean Combs. I mean, that's his bloody name.
That works.
And also, isn't there like a famous like rap song called The Diddy or something?
Paperboy, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I forgot. Anyway. We're probably not the right people to try to start rapping right now.
No.
So let's move on. And the last disclaimer is that there will be spoilers. For example, in 1944, the forest industry needed a mascot to try to prevent forest fires in America, so they came up with Smokey the Bear, where his catchphrase is, "Care will prevent 9 out of 10 forest fires."
I have a question.
Yeah.
If Smokey the Bear was created in America, why does he wear a Canadian hat?
Because Americans don't know any better, and a Mountie hat looks very ranger-ish-y.
I think he has a new tag wires now. Who knows why?
Okay. Yeah, so, all right. Anyway, let's go to our guests, and if you guys want to do a quick introduction of yourselves, if you have any shit to plug, like, I know Vanessa's got a new podcast, and apparently Peter is trying to work on t-shirts. But Vanessa, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm crazy for cult, which means that I like all things culty in nature, from crazy, weird sci-fi to, well, superheroes aren't culty anymore, but they're still culty in my heart. I've got a podcast. I've got a podcast. Getting very British now. I got a podcast called the Crazy for Cult Podcast, CFC, and that is going to be airing later this week, where I'm talking about Generation X and X-Men, because I kick it old school.
Cool. And what about you, Peter?
I actually just went to the Sports Analytics Innovation Summit last week in San Francisco. It was
Oh,
pretty
cool.
Um, I don't really have anything to plug. I kind of started a blog last year, kind of make GIFs or GIFs of kind of stuff I saw charting, and then talk about it. But since I've had a daughter, I've kind of tailed off on my blogging.
You
So
could plug your daughter.
my daughter is 9 months old and she's beautiful. So
Aw.
that's a good plug.
I need pictures.
All right.
I'll send it to Ben to put on his Tumblr, so you can follow Ben's Tumblr, everyone.
Cool.
Okay, so now I'm like I'm the surrogate Jiffer or Tumblr-er. I don't. All right.
You're the metaphorical wallet that the pictures will come out of.
Sure.
You're the medium.
Yeah.
The medium.
I'm the cute baby medium. That doesn't sound right. It sounds like a really cool band name, though.
No, it sounds like a really bad thing.
Yeah, that's true. All right, we're falling off the rails already. But all right. So of course, this podcast again, I'm trying to talk about three things I care about, which is again sports, arts, and nerdy stuff. So our mini topics, our closest nerdy thing of the week, I guess, was what it seems like is a pretty big backlash against Apple and U2. For those unfamiliar, basically the new iPhone came out, and as part of the promotion, and with U2's new album, Apple pushed U2's complete album for free to pretty much all Apple users. And I didn't realize it was a story, but people were kind of freaking out that they had U2 on their phone. I think it's partly a generational thing, but I think also, as someone pointed out, it's bad timing with the iCloud hacking celebrity situation just a couple weeks before. So, I don't know if either you guys use Apple, and do you guys care that Apple is pushing old rock music onto your phones?
I'm an old rocker, so I like you too. I don't really consider them very much rock. They're more poppy to me, but that's just me. But no, I think it's interesting, But yeah, people went kind of crazy on Facebook. This is how you delete it from your Apple, and it's like, okay. And then they're like, if you delete it, you can't reinstall it or some stuff. And I'm like, people freak out over the weirdest things.
I agree. I'm not a U2 listener, but I also don't necessarily want a bunch of stuff on my phone, kind of not knowing where it came from. It doesn't bother me though. It's called capitalism, marketing, and all that jazz. So
I mean, yeah, I
as long
think
as there's a way to get out of it, then no biggie.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a decent attempt at marketing. It's a decent marketing attempt. I heard it's actually very, very costly for Apple because it was like, what, hundreds of millions of dollars to U2 or something? But it's kind of funny, the backlash. I think partly because, yeah, we're obviously of an older generation where we probably appreciate U2 more than like the 15-year-old who's trying to listen to Taylor Swift and then U2 pops up on their playlist.
Did I become an old fogey and nobody told me?
I'm afraid so. We are old.
All right,
Aww.
well let's try and dial it back. And if we were in high school, or back when we were in high school, who would be the band that Apple put on our phones that we would be totally pissed about?
Well, first of all, we would be freaking
Aerosmith.
out if we had music coming out of our phones.
Yeah, I think we'd be going like apeshit crazy happy on that front.
But yeah, it'd probably be like, what, the Eagles or the Rolling
Oh
Stones?
God, yes, the Eagles. One of my dad's favorite bands. That or Aerosmith. I've heard too much Aerosmith growing up.
Yeah, I think in terms of mass appeal, the Eagles would be a better analog to U2, I guess.
Well, actually, given what MTV was playing, they kind of were doing the Aerosmith Apple thing, I think, but with all the Alicia Silverstone videos and all that.
Oh God, yeah.
Very true. All right, cool. Speaking of, I guess, young kids, the closest thing to artsy fartsy stuff that I thought was interesting was the new Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 trailer. Wow, that's a mouthful. I've only seen the trailer once. Vanessa, I don't know how many times you've rewatched it.
F you.
And Peter, are you familiar with this franchise? Like, do you read the books or do you watch the movies?
I have heard good things. That's what I can say.
Very diplomatic.
It's on my to-read list.
It's really interesting. I like
and then
it.
my to-see list after that.
Yeah. I like the movies. I like the books. I'm really excited for the next movie, and I like the stylistic choices they made that you can see in the trailer with, it's definitely gone a few shades darker. They're very much preparing for, the war that's kind of been building up. Spoilers? Is that a spoiler? I don't know. I don't know what a spoiler is anymore, apparently.
I already warned there's spoilers on this episode.
Okay.
So that includes, the people in, podcasting. They are culpable.
Everyone dies.
So, good job.
Guess I don't need to read it anymore.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, Peter said he doesn't have to read it anymore.
But you have to get emotionally invested for their death to matter.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I only saw the trailer once. It looked pretty exciting. I have not read the books, and probably at this point, given that this is the conclusion, the concluding trilogy, even though it's split up into 2 movies because it's Hollywood. It does look pretty darn exciting. It definitely looks very, very expensive. There's lots of CGI going on, and I'm hoping that they'll still spend the time to have good characters and good character development, because that's kind of what matters.
Yeah, for what I understand from the books, it's very character driven, especially the last book. And you'll see a lot of the same sets for at least part 1. You should, in theory, see a lot of the same sets. So they should be delving more into the characters if they go according to the book. Right.
Okay. I mean, obviously, this movie will make a bajillion dollars. I'm pretty, it's a good trailer. And I'm not going to further, dissect it any further beyond that, because I plan on watching it. So, but it's kind of, it's fun to look forward to that, because I don't think there's any other big movies coming up until the holiday season. But yeah, in the meantime, we will now switch gears to our main topic, which is about the NFL. For those who are on the audio podcast, you are missing out on Vanessa's war paint, or the black hash mark things under the eyes. I don't know the correct terminology for that. And obviously, you also missed out on Peter's self-made Joe Montana shirt. So as he shows it off there again.
To be full disclosure, I just did the design. I did not make the actual shirt.
Oh, okay.
You didn't sew it?
No.
No, he did not do the actual screen print. Is that a screen print, or I don't know the terminology?
Looks like a screen print.
Yeah, let's just call it that. All right. So obviously, there's been a lot of bad off the field stuff for the NFL, and we will not rehash everything because we've already had plenty of pretty depressing talk. But so this is kind of a dicey topic for those who are not familiar with, and it's still kind of an ongoing situation with the Minnesota player Adrian Peterson. He was recently arrested for child negligence. Basically, he was punishing his kid with a switch, which apparently
Old
So Vanessa, you're from you've been in the mid. You're not. I forgot where you came from, but I'm guessing you came from Milwaukee, right?
No, I'm actually from California. I was born a
Okay.
stone's throw from Disneyland,
Okay. I'm all right.
but I do come from a very strict family.
Okay, but yeah, I have never heard of the word switch used before, but apparently it's a either East Coast or a southern thing, but it's basically a tree branch.
Yeah.
And so he basically hit his kid, but unfortunately he clearly went too far because it's been documented that there's welts and cuts on the kid's legs and scrotum. So that there's no debate there. The interesting thing it's bringing up is how much do you punish your child by spanking and stuff? Because I'm coming from an Asian background where I have been spanked and punished by my parents and by my teachers when I lived in Taiwan with bamboo sticks, which I assume is very much similar to a switch. I think there's some value in it. I mean, obviously not to the point of what happened, but I just kind of wanted to pick your guys' brains about, how what's the extent of child punishment? I mean, Peter, you're a recent parent. Has this crossed your mind?
Not really in the least. I'm very anti-corporal punishment, and I think that it just leads to a lot of aggressiveness in someone's personality. And I'm not trying to say that finding the right way to punish your child, is easy either. I mean, it could be very difficult. I was not spanked growing up, and I was very obedient to my parents, but that might be isolated in my personality and their personalities. So part of the problem is that corporal punishment is so ingrained in culture that it's accepted, and you kind of have these cases where people take it too far. So although people realize it was taken too far, a lot of people understand it. So how would you bridge that gap to going from corporal punishment to non-corporal punishment as a society is difficult.
Yeah. Vanessa, do you have any thoughts about this?
Perspective, probably because how I was raised. My dad's ex-military. Um,
Uh-oh. Looks like it's Vanessa that has the buffer
pretty
issues now.
strict, and
Hey,
I
Vanessa, can you
really
hear
only
us?
spanked a handful of
She's
times
going into the
growing
matrix.
up.
Hey, Vanessa, I'm afraid we've lost all of that. Can you hear us? Uh-oh.
Mayday.
Yep.
Oh, she's coming back.
Thinking really wasn't enough. I got 4
All right, so
Well, how about this? What value did you yourself find in that punishment?
so obviously, unfortunately, it's a sample size of one person.
Right.
So it's very tough to to see like if my parents had used a more lenient method of punishment, would it have mattered in my upbringing? I do feel like it is very, very much in my nature to follow authority regardless. So I don't know if all that spanking would have necessarily made me more, ruly or unruly.
Can you hear
Hey,
me?
Vanessa's back. Yes.
Hi,
All that
Scott.
awesome, yeah, all that awesome speech that you had about your
Yeah.
experience, I'm afraid has been lost in the ether.
So we heard that your dad was in the military, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Apparently, Google Hangouts is anti-military. That's what happened.
Apparently, or anti-public or public corporal punishment because I'm actually pro corporal punishment. I was only punished a couple times as a kid. The fear of punishment really was enough. I have four older brothers, and watching them make mistakes and get in trouble for it kind of was enough for me. And
Okay.
then, I'm a niece, or not a niece, I'm an aunt 18 times over. So I've got a lot of nieces and nephews, and I've seen the ones that don't have, like structure and punishment, they really run ragged. And the ones that do, they're a lot better for it, in my opinion.
hmm Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean, that
yeah, sorry. Yeah, like I was telling Peter, I mean, for me, I felt overall, I felt like it was a good thing for me. In fact, it might have gone too, but it also given my personality, where I'm a little bit more introverted. I think it might have actually made me a little bit more gun shy about like speaking up or engaging people. Um, uh, but yeah, it's kind of a interesting thing to bring into the national conversation because yeah, there's this probably should be addressed and it should not just be, oh, it's just a southern thing or it's just an Asian thing or whatever. Um, but yeah, so I guess enough about the kids. Let's move on to our main topic, which is it's week 2 of the NFL season. And I guess are any of our teams happy right now? It's kind of hard to tell. Well, I guess yeah, Vanessa is. Um,
Bye.
so let's just get my team over with for now. The Raiders did not put up much of a fight against the Texans. It's I actually was just rewatching it during dinner, so that's I don't know why I do that, but it's basically a team that lacks talent. I still like Dennis Allen as a coach. It's kind of hard to tell like whether he is a good coach or not because there's hardly any players there. Defensively they were just getting pushed around. They couldn't really pressure Ryan Fitzpatrick. So it makes sense that in offense, Houston's offense is a decent offense. So it's not surprising that they just basically destroyed the Raiders, especially up the middle. And then on offense, Derek Carr. Sorry, David is his brother. He looks okay. He shows a little bit of poise and pocket presence. Like he seems to understand. He can kind of dodge out of the way when a rush is coming on, and he kind of stays in the pocket to try to wait to the last minute before he throws the ball. He ends up throwing a lot of short balls, and those are pretty accurate, so that's good, but you kind of need to be able to throw deep. He had one really good deep throw, but with that offensive line not being able to block anybody, he's not going to have the time to have be able to stretch that defense, but he doesn't suck yet, so that's a good thing.
It is just such a sad way of looking at things. He doesn't suck yet?
Yeah, because so the funny thing is, Vanessa, I don't know if you remember his older brother, David Carr. He was drafted by the Houston Texans, ironically, but that was when they were an expansion team, so their offensive line totally sucked. And he got sacked like a record amount of times. And
Oh,
there's a number of play. I don't remember if this was necessarily the case with David Carr, but there was a lot of young quarterbacks where if their offensive line is not very good, they start actually instinctively just start like freaking the hell out when there's a little bit of pressure. Like
I actually do
Things could
remember
turn
that.
into what Blaine Gabbert has always been.
right. They start hearing footsteps, so to speak. And you got to keep your eyes downfield so you can make the pass and not worry about like getting jittery and stuff. So It hasn't gone to that point yet because it's only been 2 games, but we'll see. And I think that kind of, I mean, Peter sent me a funny GIF, which happened in week 1, which for those who did not watch the Raiders game, because why would you be watching Raiders and Jets? So it was a handoff to Maurice Jones-Drew, and he got tackled where I guess it got strip sacked, and it hit him in the leg. So his legs were kind of already up, and the ball bounces way up in the air, where the quarterback, Carr, he ends up recovering it again, and then I think he just, like, I think he tries to throw it away or something.
I think it was like a mini backwards punt.
Yeah, I mean,
like, Derek Carr fielded it and covered it up, but it was pretty much the most Raiders-y thing you could see, and it would happen at the first play of the second half of their first game, which I was charting that game, so I thought it was funny that the first play I saw.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was, yeah, the only thing that could have been more Raiders is if there was a penalty involved. So 2 things about that play. One thing is I tweeted, "That's the worst flea flicker ever." And the second thing was, I don't know how you chart that play. So, Peter, actually, since you did chart that, what did you chart that as?
Pretty much called it the most Raiders-y thing I've seen, and that that the lineman was way too slow pulling. I think it was Watts. I forget which, Jackson maybe. But he was too slow. Quentin Coples just came in and tackled MJD high. He dropped the ball. He kicked it backwards. Luckily, Derek Carr was there to fall on it and mercy kill, as it were.
Yeah.
It's like falling on a grenade.
Pretty much. But yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing I'll say is actually in the second game, he did stare down his receivers on one interception. There was a couple of plays where the receivers caught it and fumbled it. So there's some promise for Derek Carr, I guess. All right, so let's go to the happiest person probably of the 3 of us would be Vanessa and your Green Bay Packers, who actually played, the Jets, ironically, this week.
Why is that ironic? I'm curious.
Well, because the Raiders were playing the Jets in week 1, so.
It's like Alanis Morissette ironic, not ironic.
Okay.
Anyway, Vanessa, I don't know if you had a chance to watch that game or not. I don't know if it was on TV.
You would not believe this. This is actually going to sound really weird. My dad dragged me to the mall, and I missed the football game because of my dad. He wanted to go shopping.
Okay. Well, gender roles. Who cares about gender roles? It's the 21st century.
Most women I know.
He's a military man going shopping. I mean, come on.
But yeah, so
good point.
My dad, military man, he is so strict about how his jeans have to be. It takes him 5 hours to pick out a pair of jeans. Hate it. So my dad dragged me to the mall and I missed the game.
Okay.
But I watched some replays and recaps, and some things are lovely and predictable about the Packers, and I love that they're predictable in certain ways. It's like whenever we start out weak, I can always expect a good comeback most of the time, because that's kind of what I call my team. We're the comeback team. We're the team that surprises you in the second half, that messes up your mind because you get all comfortable and complacent and shit.
I mean, yeah, I watched part of it. I mean, obviously when you have Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the league right now, you're always going to have a solid offense. The biggest concern I saw was, once again, their right tackle. So their starting right tackle, Beluga, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, was injured. Balaga, I called him a whale, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, all right. It's a good thing he lives very far away. Otherwise, I might get pummeled by a 300-pound man.
Get sacked.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's out, and Derek Sherrod is not a very good backup, and so that's been a big. It was a big problem, and probably a big reason why they lost in Week 1, and or one of the. It was a contributor to why they lost in Week 1, and it probably nearly cost them this game too. So I think in terms of offense, that's probably their biggest concern. Peter, I don't know if you had a chance to watch this game before heading over to watch your game.
No, living in the Bay Area where I do, I am subject to the Raiders. So I was watching Raiders Houston. Yes.
I apologize on behalf of the Raiders, I guess.
Yeah, when the Raiders are at home, that's the only game that's on. So lucky
I have
me.
to ask myself, what is it like being a Raiders fan? Do you kind of have to hate yourself to be a Raiders fan?
Well, see, it's different because 10 years ago this was not really the case. You go through it's been a very bad decade, to say the least. But before that, I mean, in the 80s and 90s, it was cool. I mean, for goodness sakes, like NWA, like adopted the Raiders basically, and kind of like West Coast gangster rap and Raiders were basically like this. For better or for worse, I guess. But I mean, yeah, it was weird. As I said before, I've said before, when Al Davis passed, he was a great pioneer earlier on, and clearly went crazy in the last 10 years of his life, and it was just kind of sad to watch that. The odd thing is, with him passing, it basically felt like, okay, now we're just a mortal but still sucky team. There is so it's at least we're going in the right direction in terms of we have a sound plan. The Raiders have a sound plan on rebuilding. It's a matter of, can this new guy, McKenzie, actually pull it off? Because unfortunately, so this is the first year where they had plenty of cap room, so they could sign new free agents. And unfortunately, basically, either a lot of players did not want to be there, and so they could only really get cast-offs from other teams. Players that you've heard of, but are like past 30 years old, and frankly should not be playing large number of snaps. So they, he really has to hit his draft picks right for this to really go well. But that's why I'm super lenient about where this team is right now. It's a team right now that's just full of cast-offs, and they're just getting beat up all over the place. At least in terms of in the trenches. So it's kind of painful, but it is what it is. But let's switch gears to the other side of the bay, or I guess. So Peter, you actually went to the home opener game on Sunday night. So how's that drive? Was that a drive, or were you able to take like public transportation? Because this is not San Francisco anymore, where Levi Stadium is.
No, I live in Mountain View, home of Google.
Oh, okay.
Which is about 35 miles south of San Francisco and only about 15 miles from the Santa Clara Stadium. So for me, my dad, who has season tickets, came down from San Francisco, probably 30, 40-minute drive. No, he said no traffic. Popped on the kind of public transportation vehicle in Mountain View, and I think it took 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get there. And then you get off and go right through the ticket turnstile, and you're in the stadium. So pretty painless as far as getting there from Mountain View. Getting back was even easier because they have like a direct bus right to the Mountain View transportation area, so that was easy too.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, because a lot
of people are Ubering also, so I don't know if that's a good way to go, but I think parking there, if you're parking at the stadium, it's going to be a lot of traffic getting out. But
So yeah, I mean, watching the Sunday night broadcast, I mean, they showed the map of going from San Francisco to Santa Clarita, and it looked like a hell of a drive. I've only been up to the Bay Area a few times, so I can't really say much. But so what can you say about the stadium? Because it's all brand spanking new. They've got all these like special Wi-Fi stuff going on. Did you try? Did you look around? Did you try to like take advantage of the new technological stuff?
I give it a bit of a try. I think like if we look on your Wi-Fi settings on your phone, I did not see any network to use, so I was just using my 3G. My dad has the Levi Stadium app, and he was using that, and it has like almost instant replays. That I mean, the quality was pretty good. Could be a little bit faster. Um, you can order your food on the app and then go pick it up
Oh, that's
as
cool.
a kind of express deal. My dad ordered it, but I think you have to look a little closer because wherever he ordered it from, that vendor station was like on the other side of the stadium. So that was a little bit, a little bit weird. Uh, I think he left before halftime and he got back like right in the middle or something like that. So um, it is a nice stadium. I liked it. I don't know. I didn't love it. I don't know how football stadiums are weird as far as liking or loving. I don't know. There were some kind of after complaints about noise levels and not being loud enough. And I think that was a combination of tons of penalties and kind of that event crowd that is necessarily always going to go to the football game, but just want to go to the first football game. So I would expect better noise levels next game, next home game.
Huh. So, in terms of the actual game itself, it was definitely a weird game. I felt like there's like lots of penalties in the first half, and it looked like San Francisco was going to. It felt like they were going to run away with this game. And then in the second half, I guess Jay Cutler to Brandon Marshall was just happening all over again, and Kaepernick had a couple of costly interceptions, if I recall, including one by one Chris Conti. So for those who are familiar with the Football Outsiders, we laugh at that name because he is a horrible tackler. But it turns out he's a decent coverage guy. But it was like I don't know how many tweets we had, but like we said like Chris Conti did something good.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be shocker of the night, but that's how you know it's going to be a weird game when like Chris Conti's making athletic plays. It was like you said, it was a very weird game because the Niners looked so dominant in the first half and dominated by the numbers, but with the turnovers, the Bears got real short field and there wasn't much pass rush on Cutler in the second half. Really, the whole game. I think the Niners had one sack, so without a lot of pressure, Cutler was just able to find his big receivers and take advantage of those mismatches.
Uh-huh. I mean, so I didn't want to sorry for this tangent. Since you talked about the pass rush, did Ray McDonald play? Vanessa, I don't know if you're familiar, but he also is involved in a domestic violence situation.
Another.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know. Sorry for
The
this
beautiful
tangent.
thing about Ray McDonald is he got involved in this situation like less than 5 days after Goodell announced his new kind of punishments for domestic violence violations or what have you.
I'm just gonna say this. I've only ever been hit by one boyfriend, and he came to school in crutches the next day. Be glad none of them are dating me that do that shit because they wouldn't survive it.
And to answer your question, Ben, he has been playing. The Niners have ruled out the old due process excuse, I guess. Um, I, I mean, I'd like to believe that he's innocent, like the Niners apparently do, but if a 10-week pregnant woman calls the cops at 2:40 in the morning on a birthday party and they think they should arrest the guy for marks she has on her, I have trouble coming up with a hypothetically logical explanation that isn't a crime.
I'm going to jump in real quick with a little bit of sociology. I studied sociology for a few years, and boys and young men look to the NFL for some type of, role model, guidance on how to be a man and things of that nature. And when they don't take a firm stance on these issues, it's sending the wrong message to young men all across the nation and even in other countries. My personal opinion is that these type of issues need to lead to serious infractions. Before there's proof, you need to suspend. Suspend, and then reinstate if it's proven that he's innocent, or if he's proven guilty, cut him out. I mean, that's me. I don't know if I'm really harsh or ridiculous, but I think we need to send a clear, strong message that domestic abuse is not okay. Any type of abuse is not okay.
Kind of what some critics or columnists have been suggesting is the Niners could have just deactivated him, not played him. He still gets paid, and you wait to see how it plays out. That way, he's still getting paid. He's not suspended because he hasn't technically done anything, but you're also not just throwing him out there like everything's A-okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think the Carolina Panthers, they had a player also under similar circumstances, Greg Hardy. I think they deactivated him, if I recall.
They did deactivate him. He has been convicted, though.
Oh,
so
okay.
The kind of big difference between the two cases, but...
Yeah, if he's been convicted, he should be more than deactivated. But that's me.
Right. Okay, so, I mean...
by their toes for the rest of their lives, but...
So, I mean, obviously, the Raiders have had some pretty bad characters, but probably not really in my lifetime, not to this extent. I mean, personally, for you, Peter, like, how does that feel like watching, like, when there's a player out there who's playing like that? Is it difficult to kind of separate the escapism part of sports while this is obviously very fresh in everybody's mind?
A little bit, not so much. I mean, I'm not gonna. I want him, if he's on the field, I want my team to win, but I'm not gonna cheer for him, kind of thing. It's like I remember, I think it was in the '90s. Leonard Little, he played for the St. Louis Rams. He had gotten a DUI and he had got a manslaughter for hitting and killing a mother. And I remember he got suspended for 8 games or something, but there was a lack of outrage, and my buddy had him on the fantasy team just because he got numbers. I was just like, that type of thing is like, I can't get into that. So from a rooting aspect, that's why it's almost like I'd rather have the team deactivate him, so just don't give me that kind of conflict as a fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Got a question for you. For fantasy football playing, if I know that injuries affect, how it works, what does deactivation do for a fantasy league?
So it's essentially very similar to an injury. So if a player is ever suspended or deactivated, or if they've been waived or kicked off their own team, or if they retire mid-season, I mean, basically that player, unless you get rid of that player or put him on your bench, that player is basically just a waste of space on your fantasy team.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, you could, this is actually probably in fantasy football right now. So we've talked about how, Vanessa. We've talked about how there's this hypocrisy with how Josh Gordon, who plays for the Browns, was initially suspended for the year for drug policy reasons. That now has been cut down to 10 games, I believe. So now all of a sudden there is probably a mad rush to get Josh Gordon because he was a very excellent player last year. This is one of those fantasy football strategies where do you take the risk of trying to get this guy who you cannot play for the first remaining 9 games of the season, and see if you could play him in the very last part of the season, assuming your team is still in the running to win.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I actually am trying to do that. I drafted Josh Gordon before the season, dropped him when I thought he was going to be suspended for the whole season, and then picked him up when I thought there was a chance that he might have a suspended sentence, if you will. So I'm going to see if I can hold on to him for 9 more weeks.
It's a very long season because Vanessa, as if I recall explaining before, the fantasy football season, the regular season's shorter than the real NFL fantasy season. So I believe, Peter, probably it'll be around your fantasy playoff time that when he would be available, basically.
Yeah, it's like the last 2 weeks of our fantasy season, and hopefully I will be in the playoffs, and he will make me very happy and wealthy.
I wish you wealth.
Yes. All right, so let's get back to finishing up talking about your 49ers. Let's actually talk about the play of your team. How do you feel about your team in the past 2 games so far? I mean, we've survived National Jump to Conclusions week, but this is probably now time to overreact week.
One more thing about the opening game. Snoop was the halftime show, which was cool. Even though I know he's a Steelers fan, it was still cool to see Snoop at halftime. As for the Niners, last week was nice against Dallas. A lot of defense, because the defense was kind of questionable as far as how are they going to operate without Navarro Bowman, without Aldon Smith, with a new secondary, essentially. And then this week started off so promising. Kaepernick did look a little off. He still, I think, has problems with shorter passes where he can't gun it as hard. And my dog is howling.
Apparently, he has his dog has opinions about Colin Kaepernick.
He wanted to be part of the podcast.
Yeah. So Vanessa, I don't know if you're familiar with how Colin Kaepernick plays, but he's a very tall, lanky dude who is a very good scrambler. He can throw the deep ball very well, but there's always been questions about whether he really can be a pure pocket passer, if he can, really. And as we get back to Peter, his short passing, his medium to short, is a little bit questionable, I guess.
Yeah, he did grow up a Packers fan, Vanessa, so you guys have that kind of similarity. Yeah, he's got a really strong arm, and he likes to show it off, but it seems to evidence itself that the short game needs some work. If you know Danny Tacito, who worked for Football, I think that's Football Guys now. He was at Football Outsiders. He also wrote for Niners Nation, which is this SB Nation fan site for the Niners.
Okay.
Mentioned Greg Roman, the 49ers offensive coordinator. He's got this kind of a wizard or a genius, or he's inventive. He's got a lot of plaudits about him, but he also has this kind of maddening times when his play calling kind of bogs down and just frustrates you. So that kind of happened also in the game, where the Niners had a long drive, got to first and goal or first and 5 at the 6, and then ran it 3 times and didn't pick up anything and kicked a field goal, where you kind of had that opportunity to really close the door and kind of left it open a little bit.
Right. So, I mean, I feel like the interceptions, I mean, I think they were really good plays by the Bears, but at the same time, I also agree that he was kind of staring down his receivers a little bit. Are you concerned about, Kaepernick like possibly plateauing as a passer, or is it still too early to tell?
I'm going to go with the glass half full response and say it's too early to tell, because I was listening to sports radio today for as much as I could stand, and one of the Niners beat reporters was talking about Kaepernick still has, less than 24 starts or something, or 32 starts. So he's not even 3 full seasons into being a starting quarterback, and there's still a maturation process that he's going through. So glass half full, he's going to mature and be a lot better. Glass half empty, the Niners can cut him because they signed him to an awesome contract, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm guessing even though the season is early, you're feeling still pretty optimistic about the 49ers' chances?
I am. They have the schedule doesn't look too bad, especially as bad as the New York Giants have played. New Orleans is 0-2, and we have to go to New Orleans. So November is going to be interesting because we play the Seahawks on Thanksgiving, and we play the Eagles, and then we play the Seahawks again. So that will be a good kind of litmus test, but hopefully Navarro Bowman and Aldon Smith will be back around that time, and we'll kind of get a true sense of who the Niners are going to be, hopefully going into the playoffs, and hopefully playing Green Bay, right?
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay looks pretty good, I guess, based
Yeah,
on what I've seen.
we're strong. I mean, we're always a good defense, if anything. And I have high hopes. I have high hopes. I don't know what happened to them last season, but this season it's looking a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, what happened last season was they did not have a good backup quarterback for Aaron Rodgers when he went down. And so that was the big
I mean,
glaring problem.
they really fleshed out the new quarterback during the preseason. So I
Yeah,
think he should be fairly
when you're
confident.
bringing in a guy the Raiders cut, that's probably not a good thing, right?
That may not be the best sign in the world, but I think he's a lot better than really like what happened with the Raiders, because frankly, the Raiders just put a stink on everything. Why are we talking about my Raiders again?
Because they're Raiders.
All right, so I guess with the last few remaining minutes, I was thinking we can kind of talk about the game charting that Peter and I do. Uh, for those who don't know, Peter is the one who actually kind of curates all the charting. So Vanessa, basically, like everyone is assigned like half of a game, and then they chart down. There's all these columns. There's like the play-by-play usual stuff, but there's also these columns that we have to fill in for like how many the formations, and if a running back suddenly is playing wide receiver, stuff like that. And then we send all those spreadsheets to Peter. So he gets stuck with all of those spreadsheets, and he's got to kind of collate all of them and send them to the head honcho of Football Outsiders. Um, and I guess you've been doing that for many, many years, right, Peter?
Yeah, I think I started in 2008 as a volunteer charter. I think I read it was then called Pro Football Prospectus of 2007, and at the very last page they talked about their game charting program, and if you wanted to volunteer, you could email them. And I remember, man, I hope they still have slots open out, but there's like less than 40 people, so there was plenty. They were they weren't going to shut me out.
Yeah,
And
and
I think
also
the guy who was collecting the charts before worked at like and had an investment banker type thing and ran out of time. And then I was like, oh, this is great. And then after a while, you're like, man, this isn't that great. Because a lot of scrubbing. I mean, it's interesting stuff, but a lot of scrubbing of people's mistakes.
Very technical.
Ben's very good at pre-scrubbing, so thank you, Ben.
I do what I can. Now, especially there's like, oh, I can't just like put random crap in here. I got to give this to Peter. Yeah, I mean, so this probably some of this stuff might be a little over your head, Vanessa, but basically, I was going to kind of talk about a little about like the new stuff that's happening with game charting this year compared to last year. Basically, some of the columns have changed, but I guess was there anything in the charting that you saw, Peter, that was a little bit more interesting or different? They added this thing called accuracy for quarterbacks, which I guess kind of streamlines how bad a quarterback throws the ball.
Well, I think that's interesting. So, like game charting, we take the play-by-play and try to add a lot more information. So if it says 3rd and 6 and Eddie Lacy runs to the left for 7 yards, that would be the play-by-play. And we're trying to talk about what was the formation, how many blockers, how many rushers, if it was a pass play, that was it a draw, that add all this kind of ancillary information to give you a better idea of what actually happened. And I think the accuracy column does a good job, because when I was charting the Raiders-Jets game, there was this pass to Eric Decker, not a Raider, and it was incomplete. And on the chart, it said overthrown. And it was overthrown, but it hit Decker in the hands. So I said, well, that's really, it's dropped, and then the accuracy was overthrown. So I think it's a way to kind of give a better picture of the quarterback-receiver interaction. Who bears more responsibility for what happened, I guess.
Yeah, especially on incompletions. I mean, we're trying to find a way where we can tell the quarterback is doing a horrible job of throwing the ball very badly, or if the wide receiver is just flat out dropping stuff. And this is also some interesting stuff, because they said to mark these accuracies even when it's like an interception, because basically, an interception could be from a great play from a defender, or it could be the quarterback throwing so horribly that the defender's just sitting there and it's like, oh, a gift. Which I think happened in the first half of the Raider-Jets game last week, if I recall.
Well, in the second half, also there was a play where, if you look at play-by-play, it says Derek Carr passes like -2 yards to number 66, the left tackle. And if you just read that, you'd be like, what the heck was that? But what happened was it was a screen pass, and I think it was either Muhammad Wilkerson or Richardson batted the ball up in the air, and then the guard caught it before anyone else. So, although I didn't give Derek Carr a bad overthrown, underthrown, I think it was just a good defensive play. So that's the type of discrepancies that we try to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it'd be kind of interesting if and I guess the cool thing for us as tools to use while we're rewatching these games is there's the NFL Game Rewind, which lets us rewatch anything, and now they have it in slow motion. So
yeah, when I first started, everything was on DVR, I had purchased NFL Sunday tickets, so whatever game I could do, then you're constantly rewinding and looking at it. And that's actually Game Rewind has come a long way, I think, the last 3 years, even this year to last year, better streaming, like you said, all 22, slow-mo, these type of things, like little 10-second rewind or fast-forward buttons. And that actually makes charting a lot faster and therefore more enjoyable.
I have a question. How does that technology transfer over to the referees? Because the biggest issue I always have when watching is like, that was a horrible call, and they rewatch it, and they keep the call. And I'm like, no, no, his foot was still in, it was right there! And I'm like yelling at my TV, and my dad's yelling at the TV, and we're like, these refs are so ridiculous. And it's like, is their technology getting better to be able to see those plays right afterwards? You know, is that also going in their favor?
I feel like
this year they have it like baseball, where they have all video goes through the New York home office, where they have a separate referee also looking at the film to make the best decision possible, which, from a sociology standpoint, home fans might be able to influence calls just by the sheer amount of peer pressure, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Oh, we're good at that.
There's been scientific studies there's been mathematical studies. Football Outsiders did do a study of this, and there does seem to be a slight advantage for the home team in terms of judging calls. So it's a legitimate concern. But go ahead, Peter.
Well, it did not work for the Niners and Levi Stadium grand opening, I will tell you that much.
Sure.
As far as the technology and what they see, honestly, I think they just spend a lot of time as far as it's mostly due diligence, and they're like, want to make sure they look at all the angles. It's probably been pretty good. I mean, they're getting all the broadcast feeds, basically. They're not getting any hidden feeds. So as long as the more broadcast cameras that are there, the better looks that they're going to have, the refs are going to have.
Yeah, overall, they've done a pretty good job of streamlining, making sure that what we see in the broadcast, like Peter says, is also the same stuff that the referees get to see in high definition, quickly accessible to what they need to see. So there's obviously every week, every game's, there's going to be one or two missed calls, and there was a huge one, I forgot which game, where a player did step out of bounds, but it was not reviewed, and it ended up being run for a touchdown. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I remember there was a year where I just stopped watching altogether because it was just a ton of bad calls, and at the end of the year, they actually fired quite a few of them, and they found out that there was a huge controversy with them taking bribes.
Oh, wow.
That's not good.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I'm pretty happy with the way it's doing right now. They'll get more and more closer to, as they might put accelerometers on players and GPS chips in the balls themselves. A lot, things are just going to be more and more clear for a very chaotic game. So my last two thoughts about the NFL Rewind stuff is two complaints. One is the slow motion does not work in the All 22. So the All 22 is basically the bird's eye view where you see all the players, and it'd be nice to have the slow motion for that, but maybe they'll fix it next year. And the other complaint I have is freaking New York Jets. Their All 22 is not the All 22. It's like a weird camera angle where you only see like the linesmen. It's almost like a broadcast. So when I try to look at the alignments of the wide receivers or the secondary, I can't see squat. Like, come on, Jets. Anyway, freaking New York.
Yeah. That's a pet peeve, I think, of us game charters is when they're about to snap the ball and they give you a close-up of the quarterback. Like, that adds no value to anyone's viewing except, like, the guy's mom probably likes it. Otherwise, it's like who cares, you know?
Everybody is somebody's mother, or everybody is somebody's kid. Yeah, something like that.
Sure, yeah. All right, so yeah, that unless we have any, I guess that's the end of yeah, we've hit overtime basically. Was there any?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Peter, did you have any final thoughts about either game charting or about how your about your Niners?
I'm still optimistic about the Niners. It's a tough loss on Sunday. I was there. That made it worse. And especially when your team is winning and you kind of already take that mental vacation of this is going to be so great, and then it comes back to bite you, that hurts. But overall, optimistic. Game charting, I just kind of started today with the Jets Raiders, and seeing that first play from the Raiders made me happy. So I think it's going to be a good season.
Vanessa, I guess, given your limited viewing opportunities, how do you feel about your Packers?
They're my boys. They'll always be my boys. I'm always proud of them. I'm like a mother. It's like you could lose, and I'm still proud of you.
Shopping or
But
football next weekend?
I'm excited for next weekend. I am very, very excited. I hope to see more Matthews. He's one of my favorite players.
He is a very excellent pass rusher, and he normally has very cool hair. So,
Yeah.
But you don't have a fat head of him in your room, as far as I can tell. So
Well,
the marketing campaign needs some more work.
All right. We do not need to promote Fathead. There probably are no Fathead players for the Raiders, speaking of, and probably at this moment, rightfully so. I guess it's just a matter of seeing if Derek Carr can keep improving as a quarterback, and if the Raiders can keep him alive with the offensive line that they have. It's going to be a long season, I guess. The only good thing about it is for game charting. So when we game chart running plays, there's a lot less columns that we have to fill out than a passing play. So teams that get blown out a lot or don't have a very good quarterback or don't trust their quarterback, they run the ball a lot. So it's like, sweet, here's the formation, done. Next play. Oh, another running play. Oh, here's the play, done. So that's the only thing I can look forward to. It's a very small consolation on my part.
Yes, if I could dovetail on that, when you have a game and it's the fourth quarter and the team's trying to come back and there's about 1 million pass plays, that just kind of, it's like hitting the the wall when you're running like a 5K or something. That's rough.
Yeah, those are a pain in the butt. All right, so I want to thank Peter for coming on and talking about all this stuff, and of course I want to thank Vanessa for being the co-host as usual.
Always a pleasure.
So,
Thanks for having me.
was that?
Thanks for having me.
So I think Peter, you're on Twitter, right?
I am. That would be at SFC Koski. I didn't put that on my banner. Oh man.
No. You put something called Ha Ha. So I don't.
That like Nelson Muntz. Ha ha.
Oh,
Reference there.
Oh.
Old nerdy Simpsons reference.
there you go.
In honor of every Simpsons ever.
So my friends went to the Hollywood Bowl. They were doing music of The Simpsons, and apparently, like, everybody was there. So, like, a lot of the voice actors, like Hank Azaria was there, and even Conan O'Brien showed up because he used to be a writer on that show. So apparently it was a lot of fun, and I should have gone. Anyway, Vanessa can be reached on Twitter at crazyforcult. She has her own podcast that's almost weekly as well, but we'll be more talking about cult stuff, not the Indianapolis Colts.
Cult movies.
Yes.
Cult classics.
And I can be reached at PT Movie Guy, And so yeah, this was fun. Say goodnight, Peter.
Good night, Peter.
Yeah. Say goodnight, Vanessa.
Good night, Vanessa.
And I'm Bin Lee, and I do not have a sign off.